Ladies and gentlemen, introducing the starting lineup for the animation acolytes. Standing at 6'3", he's as vicious on the court as he is on the mic, the Animaniac! And his partner of equal stature, fresh off his conquest of the 48-hour film competition, Joshua Marchant! And their opponent, clocking in at a runtime of 87 minutes. Its sequel will be in theaters this week. It's seen as a skid mark on the underwear of the Looney Tunes from the Warner Brothers vault, 1996's Space Jam! Directed by Joe Pidka, it's about a bunch of aliens from a theme park on one of Saturn's moons who are sent by their boss to the planet Earth to turn the Looney Tunes into their latest attractions. The aliens find them in a world in the center of the Earth, but the Toons are able to give themselves a chance by challenging them to a game of basketball, thinking it would be a slam dunk because of their small stature. But when they've stolen the talents of some of the NBA's top players at the time, transforming them into massive monsters, the Looney Tunes enlist the help of Michael Jordan to take them down. Before we get into this, I Love Loops' latest short is available on their YouTube channel called Loot and Blunder, where a heroine and her demon sidekick have a bit of trouble with their latest haul of booty. This won't be the last time I mention that in this video. It took home awards at the 48-Hour Film Festival for Best Animation. It stars my co-host for this video and Becky Quick, the creator of Mukpuddy's best cartoon since Crumbs, Tales of Nine-Eye. Their second season comes out tomorrow. Link is in the iCard above and in the description and pinned comment below. And if you guys ever want to be the first to know when a new video will be up, be sure to ring that bell after you subscribe. My next goal is 250 subscribers, and only you can help me get there. The movie grew from a pair of Super Bowl commercials for a line of basketball shoes called Air Jordans. They starred Jordan, Bugs, and Marvin the Martian. These commercials were fun for what they were, and of course they were successful. They aired during the Super Bowl. You'd have to be a moron to pass up on that advertising slot. The resulting movie made $250 million at the box office against an $80 million budget, inspiring Warner Brothers to make animated and animation hybrid films to compete with Disney. I'm sure they would have succeeded against them during one of their most successful periods, but their momentum was killed when Quest for Camelot bombed critically and financially, causing them to reduce advertising for the Iron Giant, Osmosis Jones, and Looney Tunes Back in Action. Their failures killed their animation department until the Lego Movie in 2014. The critical reception back then was mixed to negative, with it having a Rotten Tomatoes critical score of 43%. Nowadays, it holds the reputation of being a bad Looney Tunes movie.
I'd also like to take this moment to mention the rabbit in the room. It can't be denied that this movie was made to try and ride the wave Who Framed Roger Rabbit created. Part of the novelty of that movie was that it allowed us to see a world where cartoons from most of the major studios cross over. So seeing a movie where only the Looney Tunes exist, it feels like a step backward.
The way I describe this movie sounds like what the writers would do to entertain each other on their lunch break or after work. Just make up the dumbest and most insane story you can think of to make everyone laugh. And others can add on more dumb crap. They don't care because there's no way it would ever make it onto the big screen. But I guess in this case, a studio executive overheard them, pitched it to higher-ups, and they actually approved it. And now that it's on the big screen, I bet they don't find it as funny anymore.
Another thing that Roger Rabbit succeeds at, where this movie stumbles, is in setting up the rules for its reality. It splits the difference perfectly between giving you the rules for how the world works without over-explaining. For example, they don't tell us how toons are created, but they do establish that cartoons and humans coexist. This is the norm, but crucially, it shows how to kill a toon, which provides stakes for otherwise indestructible characters. In Space Jam, there are cartoon aliens in outer space, and Looney Tunes at the center of the Earth. Nobody knows this, but they also don't react with any great surprise when they discover it either. The Looney Tunes also appear to perform their cartoons live on television every day for reruns. There's a scene where MJ's kids are watching a Roadrunner short when Porky runs in to tell them there's a union meeting and the characters leave. The camera doesn't follow them and the cartoon seemingly stops. Does that sound like a creepypasta to anyone else? My point is that while it may seem pedantic to pick apart the logic of this movie designed to sell shoes and Happy Meals, taking such an uncaring approach to the logic of your movie makes this unsatisfying to anyone but little kids, and that might be selling kids short.
By the way I described it, it's only half the movie, as the other takes place in the real world, with Jordan playing baseball in the minor leagues after he left the NBA for the first time, becoming one of the worst baseball players in history with an embarrassing strikeout record of 114. That doesn't seem to bother his teammates or his coach, as they are too busy knocking the dirt out of his cleats for him, so it's left to the sports reporters to rip him apart. During this time, things seem to be pretty normal for him. I've noticed that in sports movies like this, a character in Jordan's position would feel like they don't have what it takes to do what they once did, and would somehow be given or fight for an opportunity to overcome the adversity they face. Aside from him sucking hard wood at baseball, he has a normal life with his family, in a house I suspect Jordan got so he can manage his alleged gambling issues, and when he decides to help the Looney Tunes out, his playing skills haven't waned since he left. He's compelled to help the Tunes when the aliens come in, call him Baldy, and scrunch him up into a ball to practice with. You know, I was going to call his motivation for helping them stupid based on him being offended for being called bald, but the latter part justified his participation for me.
I kind of have to give credit to Michael Jordan for being willing to participate in a movie that focuses on his very real, failed baseball career. If you could ignore the fact that this movie is based on a series of ads, it's kind of funny to think about this movie as his big explanation for why he returned to basketball. I was too busy saving Bugs Bunny from slavery to be good at baseball, guys.
In real life, the reason he returned to basketball was because there was a strike in the MLB and they needed to replace the players. With Jordan's awful track record, it would be a disgrace to his father, the reason why he took it up was to honor his memory, if he were drafted into the major leagues.
I can't blame an athlete for not also being a talented actor, but Michael Jordan is just so asleep through most of this movie. An alien ship flies overhead in broad daylight. His reaction was he arrives in Looney Tunes world? What's going on? His team, the Chicago Bulls, aren't natural either. There's a scene where they're seeing a psychic, and it's sort of funny. The psychic correctly describes the premise of the movie, and they all write her off as a quack. The Bulls get up to leave, and I guess they were just told to make up some dialogue as they left, and the way one of them flatly says, "We're going now, goodbye," cracked me up. The only really likable actors in this movie are Wayne Knight and Bill Murray, but they aren't given anything funny to say. They're just there to thumper around, reminding us of them actually being funny in Seinfeld and Ghostbusters, respectively. Danny DeVito has a great voice, but his character also has nothing to do but bluster his way through scenes without anything clever to say. His character is so one-note and forgettable that they don't even mention his name until an hour in. I assumed it was Mr. Moron or something, seeing how everything in his amusement park was made in his image, but apparently this fan-favorite character is known to his legions of fans as Swackhammer. On a side note, can you imagine if other multinational corporations made theme parks based around their CEOs? Whatever you do, stay away from Weinstein World.
Josh, being the bigger Looney Tunes fan out of the two of us, how well does this movie present them?
The Looney Tunes scenes in this movie are a welcome relief, if only because the live-action parts are so flat. Artist-creator Nico Calalio once observed, "The Looney Tunes characters are not friends. Unlike Disney's Mickey and his pals, the WB characters are not supposed to be buddies or a team. For the most part, they're either trying to kill each other or just be left alone." And I agree wholeheartedly. The characters were never designed to share the stage all at once this way. They lose their identity when they're all piled together like this, devoid of context other than living in a generic suburban township together. The best shorts are where one, sometimes two characters come into conflict with another. Having a dozen or so funny characters on screen doesn't make the scene funnier, you just lose focus. The designs and personalities are modeled after Chuck Jones cartoons, which was the case for most Looney Tunes projects up through the 2000s, owing mostly, I think, to Jones living the longest out of any of the original directors, and the enduring appeal of his cartoons, of course. But Chuck himself objected to the premise of Bugs not being able to handle a group of doped-up alien goons in 7 minutes or less. That was part of the appeal of his Bugs cartoons. Bugs was smart and used his wits to dumbfound his enemies, no matter how physically threatening they were. And I'd also argue Jones made the least horny Bugs cartoons. Bugs, for the most part, was a contented bachelor who just wanted to live his life. Lust was never really one of his facets. So it always felt off to me that Bugs is so smitten by Lola and carrying on like the Tex Avery wolf.
Now, this isn't the zany, absent-minded Lola voiced by Kristen Wiig that we came to appreciate. This Lola puts an unnecessary ass in basketball, joining the vast group of furries that includes Gadget, Sally Acorn, Roxanne, Minerva Mink, and Inspector Fox. But don't call her doll or else she'll get angry and outperform her opponents. When she's angry, she has fire in her eyes, but what she does isn't zany enough to play off of the other tunes. In this movie, she and Bugs hook up at the end, and all it took for them was her telling him not to call her doll in a sexy way, and save her from getting crushed by one of the monsters. The relationship between these two is underdeveloped.
Oh, extremely underdeveloped. Her introduction consists of her arriving to join the team, leaving when Bugs immediately catcalls her, can't say I blame her, and the next time we see her, she's in the starting lineup. A love story for the ages, it ain't. I have this pet theory that an executive at Warner Brothers who didn't actually see Roger Rabbit simply heard about the impact Jessica Rabbit made and mandated they have a sexy rabbit in their movie. I have nothing to back that up other than it's funny and I'd like to believe it. It's pretty obvious that the real motivation behind creating Lola was so Warner Brothers could have a girl character to market girl products. They'd been getting away with putting Tweety on pink backpacks for a while, but maybe people were catching on to the fact that Tweety is canonically a male character. I think it speaks to the corporate mindset of 30 years ago that they assumed all the kids who liked Looney Tunes and bought Looney Tunes merch must be boys because the characters are boys. If I were to give them benefit of the doubt and believe that they sincerely were trying to create a new character who would fit into the Looney Tunes cast, give her a funny voice. Cat Susie is a funny voice actor. Let her be funny. All the other characters have kooky voices and speech impediments. Meanwhile, Lola just sounds like girl character. I was surprised at how flat some of her lines were. Nice shot, Lola. Thanks, Bugs.
They've reworked her design for the sequel, toning down her appearance to bring more attention to her character. Fans weren't happy with this change, but I think they'll just make fan art of the sequel version to restore her to her former sexy glory.
Okay, last thing I'll say about Lola. The controversy over her redesign was largely caused by a tweet comparing her old design to her new one. The only problem was that the image purporting to be from the original Space Jam was actually from furry porn. Whoops. I actually kinda like her new design. Her old design had this tiny, inexpressive mouth, which I'm glad they've fixed. Some people have remarked that she looks a lot like Slappy Squirrel. Hey, do you think it's too late to replace Lola with Slappy? It's not like she's busy with the Animaniacs reboot. The CGI backgrounds in this movie are sometimes impressive, sometimes glaringly obvious. The stands are filled with Looney Tunes characters in looping animation cycles. There was one shot where over MJ's shoulder I could see a pig cycling through a loop at something like 3 frames per second, and it was copy-pasted multiple times in the same shot. Embarrassing. I would also like to register my disgust with the CGI moments of cartoon injury inflicted on live-action characters. I had the same feelings about this in Space Jam as I did in Jim Carrey's The Mask. Human bodies doing cartoon gags always looks terrible. Please stop. Michael Jordan folded into a basketball and Wayne Knight inflated like a balloon are truly awful sights.
The types of humor in Space Jam are slapstick, in-jokes, and some light gross-out. The slapstick in this movie ranges from generic gags to the bits that define the Looney Tunes. Daffy getting mauled by a dog during that time-wasting section where he and Bugs go to Michael's house to pick up his basketball shoes, Bugs getting cheered while Daffy gets crickets. Even all the stuff they do in the game is good. What they do to the monsters and being steamrolled later on. They're predictable, but they're executed decently. Then there are all the in-jokes about the Looney Tunes' history, along with ones about the origins of the movie.
You know all those mugs and T-shirts and lunchboxes with our pictures on them? Yeah. You ever see any money from all that stuff? Not a cent. We gotta get new agents. We're getting screwed.
And a reference to one of the film's producers during the game.
Just how did you get here, anyway?
Producer's a friend of mine. Just had a Teamster come and drop me off.
Uh-huh. Well, that's how it goes.
To make things clear for everyone, he's referring to Ivan Reitman, the director of Ghostbusters.
The Looney Tunes act more or less the way we expect them to, though they don't get a lot of new material. When they aren't taking jokes verbatim from old cartoons, they're making really obvious references to anachronistically modern movies.
Of all the types of humor in this movie, they have a few gross moments. Seeing the Looney Tunes spit shine the gym was hard to look at, but Porky Pig saying he wet himself got a laugh out of me. Anything else, like one of the Monstars getting their shorts ripped off mid-game? Nothing.
Chuck Jones famously objected to the Porky wetting himself line. I'm no prude, but gross-out jokes were never what the Looney Tunes were about. When I think Looney Tunes, I think more bawdy innuendos. My favorite piece of animation in the movie, incidentally, is a shot of Daffy kissing the Warner Brothers logo on his butt so hard, he stuffs his face deep into his own ass.
I came across a video where Trevor Thompson, the self-appointed Looney Tunes critic over at Ferris Wheelhouse, interviewed an animator on the film named Dave Spafford, where he recounts his experience working with Pidka. In one interaction he had with him, he listened to Pidka explain how they'll show Tweety passing in front of Michael, but Spafford pointed out that if they remove the guy who's going to be Tweety in the film in post, Jordan will disappear in that brief moment. This set off Joe, calling Dave an idiot and told him he has no idea what he's talking about. Or what I like to call doing a Badger Clops 13 years beforehand. Spafford ended that little interaction by saying he won't be able to use the footage he shot and Joe didn't want to work with him. A few months after that, he gets a call from the producers to say he's right about Joe's mistake and they fired him. They asked him to come back and fix it. He suggested editing down one sequence, then replacing the basketball with an animated one and have Tweety be close to the camera. The producers then asked him to do some more sequences for the movie, allowing them to do them how he and his team wanted. The sequences he and his team did were the Looney Tunes spit shining the gym, Daffy checking on Jordan after he entered their world, any scene where Daffy has his Bob Clampett design. That's a good indicator of the scenes he and his team did. Spafford didn't want to do any more work on the film outside of that. I'd be somewhat okay with what happens in the movie, if not for one detail during the basketball game. Michael witnesses Stan, his assistant who finds him very annoying throughout this movie, Paul Wayne Knight, get reinflated after the Monstars flatten him. He asks his teammate how he was able to do that, and Bugs explains that anything physical can become physical comedy, and decides to use that to his advantage in the big game. I want to remind everyone that the Looney Tunes will be forced to work at a dodgy theme park out in space if they lose, meaning all the gags of the Looney Tunes getting injured doesn't make sense when they know what's at stake, especially when they're seen to be fine when celebrating their victory.
I've always been of the opinion that the Looney Tunes don't work in movies for this reason. They don't learn from their failures, which is part of why they're funny. They work in the short form, but audiences expect more from characters in an hour-and-a-half story. Not to mention the characters can never really be in any serious physical danger, since it's shown time and time again that they can bounce back from anything. The movie makes a point of explaining the rules of basketball in an instructional film strip early on, and states that there are only 5 players on a team. But during the match, any Looney Tune they need for a gag is suddenly on the court. At the halftime break, you can clearly see 14 players for the Toon Squad leaving the court. I sure hope somebody got fired for that blunder. I may not know much about the rules of basketball, but at one point, Elmer and Yosemite Sam shoot another player's teeth out with guns. That's gotta be a technical foul or something. This is also a moment where they go overboard with the needle drops. They jump from Get Ready for This to Miserlou from Pulp Fiction and back to an original score in the space of about a minute. This is the definition of a commercial movie. It was literally based on a series of commercials, and its only goal was commercial success. It's so obvious in its lack of artistic inspiration that it's kind of funny it exists at all. Now that I've seen Cool World, I can say this isn't a good movie, or even a movie that tries very hard, but it does deliver on what it promises. Michael Jordan and Bugs Bunny playing basketball. No more, no less. If you feel nostalgic for it, I don't think you'll come away disappointed for that reason, but other than that, it's just not worth the time.
Whenever I hear about something to be declared bad, I go into them with an open mind to see if there is good, if the reaction to them was overblown or justified. Space Jam's live-action sections were boring and wasted talented actors. The animated section is the most entertaining, but it has nonsensical moments. One of them that ruins the humor and story. A story that doesn't fit what the Looney Tunes are all about, even if it was done well.
The sequel looks pretty bad for the exact same reasons, and will only be treated to so much 2D animation on the big screen before the Looney Tunes get covered in CGI hairs and pores. The dialogue sounds like the dialogue big movie studios have been trying to pass off as hip for the past 10 years. Haters gonna hate. Well, that happened. And Warner Brothers is using this as another excuse to show off all the IP that they own in perpetuity and will never be allowed in the public domain as long as Warner Brothers exists. The one change I'm on board with? Pepe Le Pew replaced by Gossamer. A way cooler design and would undoubtedly be a better basketball player.
If you guys enjoyed the video, leave a like, comment your own thoughts on the film and your hopes for the upcoming sequel, follow Josh on Twitter at Joshua Marchant, and subscribe to his channel. During the second lockdown last year, he live streamed reading the book Who Censored Roger Rabbit in its entirety, voicing characters like Eddie Valiant, Roger, and Jessica. In the third lockdown, he read Mel Brooks's Springtime for Hitler, the original title for his breakout film, The Producers. I Love Loops' new award-winning short, Loot and Blunder, is out now on their YouTube channel, and if you guys want to stay updated on future videos and see some cool artwork, be sure to follow me on Twitter, Facebook, Tumblr, and DeviantArt. The links are in the description. And if you want to be the first to know when a new video will be up, ring that bell after you subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.